but you never steer me wrong. So lead on, good shepherd, lead on.
Jesus, he's just finished his discourse with these folks that he fed, and he moves on. Chapter 7, verse 1 says, "After this, Jesus went about in Galilee. He would not go about in Judea because the Jews were seeking to kill him. Now the Jews' feast of booths was at hand. So his brothers said to him, 'Leave here and go to Judea, that your disciples also may see the works you are doing. For no one works in secret if he seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world.' For not even his brothers believed in him. Jesus said to them, 'My time has not yet come, but your time's always here. The world can't hate you, but it hates me because I testify about it, that its works are evil. You go up to the feast. I'm not going up to the feast, for my time has not yet fully come.' After saying this, he remained in Galilee. But after his brothers had gone up to the feast, then he also went up, not publicly, but in private." Jesus isn't afraid of death, but it's not time for the crucifixion. Romans 5:6 says, "While we were still weak, at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly." And that's what Jesus was saying in verse 8. He said, "You go up to the feast. I'm not going up to this feast, for my time has not yet fully come." There's a time for everything, and Jesus is on God's time schedule, not his brother's time schedule, and not his own. The Feast of Booths was also known as the Feast of Tabernacles. It's the last of the fall festivals and was held at the end of the agricultural year when the grapes and the olives were harvested in Israel. It was also a time to remember the wilderness journey from Egypt to Canaan. And I'm going to read the commandment out of Leviticus chapter 23, verse 39. "On the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the produce of the land, you shall keep the feast of the Lord 7 days. On the first day shall be a solemn rest, and on the 8th day shall be a solemn rest. And you shall take on the first day of the fruit of the goodly trees, branches of palm trees, and boughs of leafy trees, and willows of the brook, and you shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. You shall keep it as a feast to the Lord 7 days in the year. It is a statute forever throughout your generations. You shall keep it in the 7th month. You shall dwell in booths for 7 days. All that are native in Israel shall dwell in booths, so that your generations may know that I made the people of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God." So here's a picture of the family building a booth to remind them that the wilderness experience was temporary. Concerning the land of Israel, God said in Leviticus 25:23, "The land must never be sold on a permanent basis, for the land belongs to me. You are only foreigners and tenant farmers working for me." I guess that makes it plain who really owns the land. Looking at verse 3, it's evident that the brothers of Jesus believed that he did miracles. "Go so your disciples may see your works which you are doing." I'd like the way the NLT writes verse 4. It says, "You can't become famous if you hide like this. If you can do such wonderful things, show yourself to the world." But Jesus knows doing miracles doesn't make people believe in him. He just proved that after feeding 5,000 people plus women and children. That powerful miracle that didn't make people turn to him, but walk away when he started explaining who they were turning to. It wasn't until after the resurrection that the brothers believed in Jesus. Acts 1:14 said, "These with all one mind were continually devoting themselves to prayer, along with the women and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and with his brothers." So that's good news that they did come, but at this time Jesus was contending with brothers that did not believe in him. Jesus told them that the world can do as they please because they're of the world. And the believer, he's at odds with the world because we testify that the deeds of the world are evil. I really think as believers we need to learn to take a stand on biblical truth. We just read how Jesus did go to the feast, but he didn't go publicly as the brothers suggested, and he didn't go when the brothers told him to go. Jesus is going to do things on God's time, nobody else's. John 7, starting at verse 11. So the Jews were seeking him at the feast and were saying, "Where is he?" And there was much grumbling among the crowds concerning him. Some were saying, "He's a good man." Others were saying, "No, on the contrary, he leads people astray." Yet no one was speaking openly of him for fear of the Jews. But when it was now the midst of the feast, Jesus went up into the temple and began to teach. The Jews then were astonished, saying, "How has this man become learned, having never been educated?" So Jesus answered them and said, "My teaching is not mine, but his who sent me. If anyone is willing to do his will, he will know of the teaching, whether it is of God or whether I speak from myself. He who speaks from himself seeks his own glory, but he who is seeking the glory of the one who sent him, he is true, and there is no unrighteousness in him. Did not Moses give you the law, and yet none of you carries out the law? Why do you seek to kill me?" The crowd answered, "You have a demon. Who seeks to kill you?" Jesus answered them, "I did one deed, and you all marvel. For this reason Moses has given you circumcision, not because it's from Moses, but from the fathers. And on the Sabbath you circumcise a man. If a man receives circumcision on a Sabbath so that the law of Moses will not be broken, are you angry with me because I made an entire man well on the Sabbath? Do not judge according to appearance, but judge with righteous judgment." The Jews were looking for Jesus before he arrived. Jesus didn't need to go to the feast to make himself known. They were looking for him. Even the crowds were talking about Jesus. Everyone's making a decision for Jesus, either for him or against him, even if it's quietly. There's no in between. You can't be a fence sitter for very long. But it's sad to see that the people were more afraid of the Jewish leaders than they were of God. These Jewish leaders start to question Jesus' education. They recognized, they said, "This guy knows a lot. How did he get to know a lot? He's never been educated." Jesus answered that he didn't educate himself, but he received his knowledge from the Father. In reality, all that we know about God doesn't come from our education, but it comes from the Father. It's the Father that reveals what we're learning to us. And Jesus is telling everyone there who is listening to him that you will know whether he speaks the truth or not if you're willing to do the will of the Father or not. Those who do the will of the Father will know that Jesus is speaking the truth. Jesus is not glorifying himself, but he's glorifying the Father. And Jesus confronts the sin of these Jewish leaders. They claim to attack Jesus because they have a zeal for the law of God. But Jesus says, the law, Moses says you're not supposed to commit murder, but you want to kill me. John 5:45-47, it says, "Do not think that I will accuse you before the Father. The one who accuses you is Moses, in whom you have set your hope. For if you believed Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote about me. But if you do not believe his writings, how will you believe my words?" When Jesus said that, the Jews were just persecuting him. Now they've escalated their hatred for him and they want to kill him. Jesus continues presenting his argument to these Jews. He says, if it's commanded to circumcise a child, even if that day falls on a Sabbath, why is it wrong to heal a man on the Sabbath? In another place in the Gospel of Mark, Jesus said the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. And in another place he said, the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. And Jesus sums it up saying, don't judge by the appearance of things, but judge with righteous judgment. It may have appeared that Jesus was breaking the Sabbath, but after examining the situation, it would be very evident that Jesus was not breaking the Sabbath, but he was doing good on the Sabbath. Even in our own lives, we have to be careful not to judge what we see. When I was working one time, a man had this paint marker in his hand, and I looked up and he had the paint marker up there and some foul language there. And I thought, oh, brother, what are you writing that for? And he looked at me, he says, you think I'd write that? I'm trying to scribble it out, but this is dry. I got to go get one that has some paint in it. I was a fool to judge that man by the appearance of things. I made the judgment call wrong. I already figured he'd wrote that foul language. And he was trying to scratch it out so it couldn't be read. Jesus has told us that he sends us out as sheep among wolves, and that we're to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Let's pray to the Father of the harvest that we can manage to do everything he has asked us to do, that his name would be glorified.